Andy, welcome to the 40-Minute Mentor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we always like to kick this off with some quick fire questions to get a snapshot of your CV. So if you don't mind, please can you finish these sentences? Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. When I was little, I always wanted to be.
Goku from Dragon Ball Z. Humble, super strong, cares a lot about people. Go, always gets better to save the earth. Not bad characteristics or attributes of a mentor, an anime mentor nonetheless, but a mentor still.
Love it. Brilliant answer. Okay. When starting my career, I wish I'd have known.
That integrity is the most important thing, and that vanity doesn't matter.
Couldn't agree more. I became an entrepreneur because
I'm not particularly good at anything. The one thing I'm okay at is problem solving. That happens to be enough.
you're very humble, but we'll come on to this in a bit more detail. I'm most energized at work when I'm.
Spending time with incredible people, people at everything, and it's I get the luxury of spending time with people 24/7 and learning about their stories and their backgrounds and their futures. So that's
Love
what
that.
energizes me every day.
Yeah, I feel very, very similar. And finally, Andy, can you share something we wouldn't learn from your CV, whether that's a perceived failure or setback in your career that you've learned from?
Oh, great. So I'm gonna give you a side thing actually.
Okay.
When I was younger, I did some TV presenting for Nickelodeon for a few years, and every Sunday, and I got to spend a lot of time with the likes of the Tias and Tamaras, the Keenan and Carls, the Tylers, etc., Sabrina, Teenage Witch and stuff. And what I learned from that is that and it was good because I grew up not not then idolizing celebrity because I was quite used to them being around, and all that meant is that, and I am so far from anybody in the world, but it just taught me to always just be humble and accessible, and that no one is too above anybody, for better or worse.
That is brilliant. And as somebody, as a kid that always wanted to be a TV presenter or like a Sky Sports news presenter, that was my aspiration. I'm very jealous of that one. Amazing. I love this question. Honestly, gives some incredible answers. I would have never known that. Amazing. Well, thank you, Andy. Lovely to get a snapshot of your CV, but I really want to dive into your career because it's been an absolutely fascinating one. For anyone who isn't familiar with your career story, I'd like to start off with your early days as a founder and your journey to becoming an investor, and how you became named as the Business Insider's one of the 100 people transforming business, which is some sort of a huge accolade. So kudos to you. You've mentioned in previous interviews that you've never had a traditional or what's been traditionally seen as a proper job. Can you tell us a bit about that? And did you always know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
So I think it will always go back to just things you do, right? So I've never gone and pursued an entrepreneurial venture because I've wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've always had a problem in front of me and gone to solve it. And when I thought it was big enough, or I thought it was a big enough problem for a lot of people, I've then gone to solve it for more people, and thus those things became startups or businesses. Um, I think that can start from little things like one day you buy a lot of, but as there's always this kid in every school. You buy a lot of sweets and you start sending it to kids, and then one day you outside the vending machine and you do it for like a few months until you get told to not sell next to the vending machine anymore and stop sending sweets. To then you grow up to I was the weird guy first year of uni who every time the lift pinged in our accommodation building, I'd pull people out the lift and have them come and answer a quick quiz in my room on whether or not they do something on the internet for this amount of money or whatever it is, and they just thought this guy's weird, and and this would be absolutely anybody. And then I think again it just comes down to solving problems. So when I first got going with some stuff, I remember we started a football based business in 2009, 2010, and it was something called Prem Picker, where one would predict the Premier League table in advance, and then and then if you got it right, then the season you win 100k. We did not have 100k to give anybody, but it was so early on the internet that the only things people were really doing there were people on YouTube, they were on like SkySports.com, and then some people like were on Facebook, and you were on these like major sites. There's a lot of micro sites, but people spend less time on them than they do today, of course. So we just put this thing online, and within the week, we had like 2,000 people engage with it and
Really?
create a Premier League table. And I think we we didn't know where they were from. We didn't really track anything. So to have people from all these different countries speaking different languages doing it was interesting. I think, but when it comes to problem solving, it's so interesting because we did that. We started getting partnerships with the likes of the Guardian and now footitube.com, which I think is the number one football highlight site. But when they first got going, um, and a few others, we and and then we had built a team around us. The UCL gave us some resource in the form of engineers and designers. And but then one day I just woke up and said, I was the biggest football fan in the world, but I said, actually, we're not solving a problem. This already exists.
Really?
And it's so interesting, right? And it was like, actually, when I put this thing on the internet, yes, it's fun. I didn't feel like we were solving a problem. And again, I stem from problem solving. And I was like, we're not solving a problem. So I think anyone can do this. They should just go to Sky Sports. They should go here. Yeah, we've got this Premier League table thing. But
That's
so
really
I think
interesting.
I've always I was always cared about solving problems for people. That was
That's
always like
really
the most
interesting.
important thing for me to do, and thus went on to do some things in education and healthcare where
Excuse
um, the problems were there were larger pain points and obvious pain points with institutions involved. And I don't think I realized until a few years ago, 2 years ago, someone said to me, "Oh, you haven't really done anything in the consumer space," and I was like, "Ah, that's really interesting, actually." Besides the football thing, like in 2009, and I was like, "That's really interesting, actually. I didn't think about it that way." And that's probably where, again, my lack of fear comes around sales and doing big things because I've always had to go sell to institutions who I may have had no business being involved in. So when it comes to a job, on paper, I think I'm very, very weak. I'm extremely weak. I'm like the weakest person in the whole world. No one would hire me. No one probably should hire me. I'm the guy who, if I got hired, I would, when everyone leaves at 5 or something, I would just rearrange all the tables in the office and chairs to make it the most efficient for like people to get around and faster work. And then I'd get fired the next day. They were like, "Why did you spend your time doing that?" I'd probably move chairs and tables outside and be like, "Actually, I don't think we need all these people." So yeah, and to jump forward a bit, we can go back. I remember even at one point in my life, I remember applying for about 200 or 300 jobs, and I think I got 6 interviews. Um, I had 6 interviews, 2 second interviews, and didn't get one offer. Right,
Oh, really?
and I was told at the time, just use your network, whatever. And I was like refusing. I was like, actually, why can't I just apply for jobs? I'm gonna look for jobs online and apply. And that just tells you on paper, I'm very, very weak. In person, I think I'm a little bit better. But
That's well,
yeah,
definitely. You're very humble. I mean, but you clearly like you've tried so many different things and you've had so much success. I find it fascinating that you were doing something that you really like, you had a passion for, but you stepped away from it when it was clearly going really well. And that clearly speaks to this desire that you have to solve bigger problems. Where do you think that comes from? Is this stemming from like something in your childhood? Is that just always the way you've been? I'd love to learn a bit more about
so as quite a lot of people know, I grew up poor, and I think didn't really grow up much. So I'm not someone who needs a lot, but I think I've always been around problems. I think growing up poor, you guys, the problem is poverty, right? And then
that.
there's a few other problems in around it. It's access to jobs, it's education, it's not having things in the house, not having food like if it's food at times or whatever it is, electricity running out. You guys actually to get to the point where these things that happen, these problems that occur, this pain doesn't exist, you have to maybe generate wealth or enough resource to stop that happening, right?
Yeah.
For a better future per se, especially in this side of the world where money is oxygen out in this side of the world. To be honest, without money, a lot of things just fall apart. So
Yeah.
this isn't like in several places, right? Several places in the world, such as where I'm from in Sierra Leone, where my family's still extremely poor. I've got friends here who are poor still, and then on top of that, we've got all these healthcare issues. And so I grew up a twin, and my twin brother passed away when I was 17. And I remember
Oh God.
him passing away. I
So
don't think it was the
sorry.
first, absolutely fine, right? And I think it was the first death close I had experienced like that, and that was the first funeral I ever went to. I remember thinking the whole time, and this came from nowhere, of course, but it was like, hey, if we had private healthcare, we had we could afford better healthcare, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Which isn't necessarily true. Now I know things in the world, because people unfortunately pass away every day, regardless of their financial position
Mm,
or the resources that they have access to. But we do know that better resources can help.
yeah.
So I think that partly fueled the fire. It was like, actually need to be working on things which can move the needle and really change the world.
Wow, it's amazing how many people I've spoken to, how many amazing entrepreneurs actually some of that inspiration for the way they are comes from moments of trauma or tragedy, and I obviously didn't know that, and that's really sad, but clearly it's given you fire in the belly to do a lot of the things that you've done. When you look back at those early ventures that you talked about just a minute ago, what are some of the lessons you learned from them that you now use today? Now that you're a very successful investor, entrepreneur, but are there still things from those early days that you take into your role now?
Sure. So and I don't think I'm very successful yet. To me, it's still day one, and I'm I still wake up every day and bust my ass and work 24/7. And like I fear the 19-year-old Andy Davis, like running and catching up with me and beating me and leaving. And
That keeps you on your toes, right? It keeps
yeah,
you on.
it keeps me on
Yeah.
my toes, and I just stay hungry every single day, 24/7. And I know that until me, myself, my family escape like poverty, and we have all these healthcare issues in the world solved as
Mm.
well, I'm not done. I'm very far from done. So so what was the question? I didn't say
No,
something
no, I
else.
was just saying, were there lessons from that, from some of those
Lessons.
early days?
Sure.
Yeah,
So I think lessons always work on big problems. That was what I learned, say with the football thing at
yeah.
Prempicka. Going on to do a school application system. Applied. I remember I got some investment from Telefonica, and how old was I? I think I was 22 or 23, 22 or 23, and I think like there was a lot of startups around in our building that they had funded and stuff, and they'll connect us to different people to talk to, and I think everyone wanted to present with their best foot forward. But sometimes what that meant was presenting with vanity as opposed to the actual reality of where you are.
Mm, mm,
And I just learned that vanity doesn't pay. And I learned that
mm,
really early. But like it was almost late, because it probably cost us in the venture
right.
of our progress. It was like, oh, we're doing well, we have all this interest, where we've got all these institutions we're talking to. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is the only thing that matters. And that's why I learned really early that vanity just doesn't pay. You have to focus on the actual reality of the actual business. And it's like the whole vanity is like the whole vanity and profit thing, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to really just focus on um on the business itself. I think, and then going forward, I learned that integrity is really important. I think even partly after that, like a year or so after uh, going on to another venture, I think I then messed up with we're doing so well, incredibly well, and we were going really fast and all these things. And
What was the venture? What was it?
Notified, it was a education
Ah,
messaging product.
okay.
Um, and I think in a few months we had gone to 56 institutions. And I took a lot of lessons from the previous start, where we had all these conversations, but we didn't have anything signed, and it was a B2B product, and it was a long sales cycle with a large price for the product and all these things. So that's something later, but I took all the right lessons of how to
Mm,
get adoption with these customers, and then ended up in a bunch of institutions. We worked our arse off, but we're very grateful that they loved the product, and we did a lot of listening. But then I think where I messed up, it wasn't it was where I messed up was with my co-founders around, I think, two things. One was, again, even equity, all these conversations around equity and not
mm,
just splitting things equally. And I thought, oh, because I put money into the business, I had been full time for a few months before them. They came full time after we got an investment. And so maybe rightfully, but I think in the grand scheme of things, none of these things matter. You just have to, like, do
mm,
you want to go on the ride for the next 10 years with these people? And if so, does a few percentage points make a difference? That was one thing. And then
mm,
um, two is just integrity. I think I learned a big lesson in integrity when it's like, hey, actually, when you're talking about your previous experience and work and successes or failures, just to always be honest and not to keep anything hidden, because things always come up, and everyone was doing it. But it was you don't want to ever look bad to anyone, but actually sometimes honesty is just best, and people just
Yeah.
appreciate really honest people. And I was really young, and I think and I'm so glad I learned those lessons then, and it just taught me to be like a better human, a better person to everybody, and going forward
Such
building
good
things.
lessons to learn. Yeah, such important lessons to learn. And it sounds like because you've been so entrepreneurial and you've had so many like businesses from a relatively early age, you've had to grow up really fast.
Yeah,
And also like the things you said about honesty and integrity, they're so important. Like
they're so
and
important.
it's one of those things that can easily be overlooked, when we're looking at scaling a unicorn, all the things that people want to do that. But actually, at the heart of it is if you have those things, I think you can always do well. You've just gotta, if you've got the problem solving mindset, which you do, but then you do business in the right way, then people will want to work with you and for you and invest in you. In my opinion,
Yep,
that's really
and
really
I
interesting.
think you have to choose what you want in life. Right? I think what I was doing then was wanting to be great, but for a second not looking at the greats. I know like there are so many greats. Like I grew up with the Michael Jordans and the Serena Williams and the Lionel Messis, um, being my inspiration, and the Son Gokus. And as you know, that even look at someone like Goku and Lionel Messi, I know that like and even Serena, humility is so important. It's just so important, right? And that is and all that means is also embracing where you've gone wrong, embracing where you've gone wrong, embracing your failures, and growing from that, and
Yeah,
taking all the lessons, and being patient as well. It's
yeah,
okay.
definitely.
Like another opportunity is coming, you just have to be ready for it. So get ready. One of the lessons I did take actually, I remember when I messed up with Notified with my team, and then we decided to shut it down, and we're doing well, and we had to return. I had to return, or I returned investor capital, and I had another term sheet for some investors, and I was like, actually, like time to take a break here a bit, right? And I was the guy running like 100 miles an hour 24/7,
Mm,
but time to take a break. And I remember like you obviously feel a bit down and a bit sad that these things have come to an end. But I remember I was watching the NBA finals, and I remember Cleveland were playing Golden State, and LeBron was Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and others, and LeBron had lost right in that final, and it's LeBron James, the best player in the world today, right, best basketball player in the world today. And I remember thinking, oh, he had lost, and then a few weeks later they start training again, and then the season started, and I was like, he
mm,
had lost, and it was like the world was on him. Oh, all the cameras on in the media, and he looked like
mm,
he's a loser in the world's eyes. But all of a sudden, it was like a period passed, and he was training, getting ready for next season to go win again.
yeah,
And I was like, get up, get ready for next season, go win again. And it was
yeah,
literally that. And I was like, get up and go win again. And
yeah,
that just sparked
totally,
that actually the day's never, if the day's done, but the week's never over, right? Like you have to
totally.
like, keep going, get up and go again.
And I think that's one of the most important things as an entrepreneur and a leader. It's something I've learned. I took the losses in the early days of JBM very hard. It took me days to get over the candidates that turned down offers or things that went wrong. Whereas now, when you've been through that cycle enough time, you realize the importance of bouncing back and just getting back on the horse and doing it. So that
Yeah.
really resonates with me. I wanted to talk about investing because you moved in 2018. You went to work for Backstage Capital as a VC. What inspired you to make that move from kind of founder to investor? And what are some of the skills you learned from that? Because it's a move a lot of people call us about wanting to make.
Yep. And they do. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, it's interesting, a lot of entrepreneurs want to be investors, uh, but I think, and I know a lot of investors want to be entrepreneurs, but my preference is always on the entrepreneurial side. But the move happened. But actually so before we get back to the actual move itself, when I'm going to jump a little bit. So when the move happened, it was three of us who set up Backstage Capital in the UK.
Mm,
Myself and Andy IM and Nisa Osman Britton. And we, I remember we had this conversation and it was like, hey, like how much their lives have changed. Andy went from being a product manager at a very large startup to being a VC, an investor. And Nisa was running a coding school and she's now investing. But I didn't feel my life changed at all because yes, I'd been a founder my whole life, but I remember it was almost like every week, every Friday and Saturday and the weekends, I'd spend time with other founders, helping them with their pitch decks to talk to investors, connect them with investors. I'd spend time to help them hiring. I'd spend time with their product team to help with product, helping with sales materials and stuff. So I was always doing that work, like that value add investor work
mm,
anyway. And a few months, about 6 months before the backstage opportunity arose, I was sending out deals to my investors for other startups I knew, and they were investing in them. And so I spent time seeing a lot of founders, mostly because I run a network, a group called 10x10, which we'll get to, I guess. So I was sending out a lot of deals to them, and they were investing. And I was doing it anyway. Then I was on the phone to them, telling them why it's a good investment, why this founder. I spent time with the founder, helping prepare for the meetings. So the only difference was now that I was the one sending the capital over. That was
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So
Okay.
and yes, that's a big deal, but you have to be conviction driven. And my conviction was so strong that it didn't matter that if I was sending the capital over or not. So when I had the opportunity to do so, it was these companies I told you about. We're going to back them. Like any company, I've got high conviction with them. And if I say to you, you should put money in, or I suggest you do so, then I will do so as well. And yeah, so that's why nothing really changed.
Nice.
But the opportunity came about because maybe because of that. I think when Arlen Hamilton, the founder of Backstage Capital, she came to London a few times, and she wanted to open up here. She wanted to meet some
Mm.
investors here and some entrepreneurs, and I played a part in connected with some investors and went to one or two meetings where we were in small rooms and we had conversations regarding the UK ecosystem, and she got the investor perspective and founder perspective. And a friend of mine, Andy Ayim, he was the first hire. So he was the first hire because he had been like following her for some time, supporting her team, all these things. He'd been doing like somewhat distant but connected work with them. Then when they came to UK, it was, hey, she announced at the meeting, the private meeting we had with investors, and he's going to be in the UK team, Andy Ayim. And then when the meeting was done, she's like, hey, like I want, like, why are we not working together? I want you to join us. And I was like, well, it's on you, then it's on me. Get something to me, then I'll look at it and make a decision. And eventually, I think being an entrepreneur is never easy. Even leaving a startup is never easy to go and do it.
Yeah.
I think you have to. Andy and Lisa got announced, and there was a thing where I just couldn't be announced yet because I hadn't told my team yet, my investors, or anything, and I needed more time. I wanted to do it in a respectful way, and I
Mm.
said, let me create the infrastructure here, and that it doesn't matter, like it won't matter when I'm gone, or
Yeah.
I'll transition out in some way, and that's what ended up happening. So I got announced
Oh,
a bit
nice.
later, and it completed the team.
Exciting. So when as an early stage investor, what do you look for in businesses and founders?
Sure. So firstly, obsession, and that is because I think if you're obsessed with a problem, obsessed with obsessed with whatever it is, right? Even a sector, you should land on a unique insight which makes you different to everybody else, right?
Mm.
And that unique insight should be the catalyst for change and the enabler to help you win. So obsession's one. The ability to run through walls is important. I don't want any wall in front of any founder, especially diverse founders or black founders, because there's already enough obstacles in their way anyway. But
Mm.
when you know this, when we go to these businesses, walls just land in front of us for no reason. Oh look, here's a wall. You're like, oh, I just woke up this morning. Like, and like even before this call, I had this thing just land in front of me. I was like, oh, like, okay, cool. I have to help someone solve it. So ability to run through walls is important and get through challenges. And I think so obsession, ability to run through walls, and I think the last thing is validation. That's really important. And my friends joke that, hey, Andy would invest in a spreadsheet because I would invest in a spreadsheet. I'd invest in a text message, a Twitter page, an Instagram page.
Yeah.
I'd invest in email, just emails, because I just want validation. Just I don't care what the product necessarily looks like or feels like today. I just want to know that you're solving the problem for those people. And if people are going through some sort of crappy alternative way to have it solved for them, if we back you and you actually build something that's feels seamless, the seamless experience around this solution, then that would have a great impact. So
Yeah.
I want to see validation. Just show me that people actually need this thing and that they're using it.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, really, really, really interesting perspectives there, and great advice for anyone listening. I think that there'll probably be lots of entrepreneurs pitching right now to VCs that might be listening to this podcast. So, what are your tips for them to if they land in front of you, what should they do? How should they? Are there any red flags that they should avoid? Would love to hear your thoughts.
Red flags. So I'll do what you should do first, then red flags. So always sell on vision. Go big. People literally don't know who they compete with, right?
Mm.
Especially if you're in the UK. I get so many pictures UK, and I spend a lot of time on US calls, East Coast and West Coast at night, and it literally goes from UK startups sometimes pitching, and it's not their fault, right? Just exposure. It's they pitch and they'll be very conservative, as our culture is here, and they'll say, "Hey, in 5 years' time, we're gonna get to 10 million in revenue." I've talked to a US founder. He's like, "Oh, and this product is gonna be for," and then he or she, like, this product is for like 7 billion people. I was like, everyone on the planet, and they're like, "Oh, okay, well, it's for like 3 billion people." I'm like, what, all women on the planet? And it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm like, including babies. Okay, well, 1 billion people. I'm like, but they dream so big, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
it's so audacious. But and that's the risk we're taking. That's the bet we're making, right? That we're betting
Mm.
that this is going to be so gigantic that it's going to win. And I think just so sell on vision and be really ambitious, and do not fear ambition. I think that's one thing. I think two, dive deep on any sort of engagement you have. There's too many pictures where everything's so high level. Oh, we've got X number of users, whatever it is, and we're also used to hearing it. It's like everyone has users now. Everyone has customers.
Mm.
Everyone's realized that you can give Facebook money and get some customers or whatever it is. But dive deep on engagement and how it actually solves a problem for them. Like, tell that story. And I think the third thing is 90% of early stage fundraising is just about narrative. So get
Mm.
the narrative right. Take a step back and just tell it should feel like a story, and tell the story to people and see if they're convinced, and go run it by a bunch of people as well. I think
Yeah.
that's really important. And sometimes even run it by people who maybe aren't investors, just to get what their perspective is and see if it makes them sit up a bit and go, okay, then I would prioritize your investor meetings in order of not who you don't want first, but the investor you definitely want last. You want to practice pitching, but you never know. You can meet some great people. So some people say they like me to be involved, whatever it is, for whatever reason.
Mm.
And I think they can talk to me first, because I've been a founder. Sometimes the investors who are founders, we just happen to be a bit more friendly and understanding
Yeah.
for obvious
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah. Love that. And the storytelling piece is something that's really underrated, isn't it? It's so important to be able
Yeah,
to craft a story and take people on that journey.
one
Because
hundred percent.
we're all like, we all get bought in by that way, right? Don't get me wrong, like the numbers and the product market fit and all that sort of stuff is important. But actually, if you can engage someone, then it makes a world of difference.
Makes a difference. Oh, red flags very quickly. So red
Yes, yeah,
flags,
yeah.
vanity, red flag, of course. Do not present any vanity metrics. Just present. I don't care if you don't tell me you've had 5,000 or 50,000 people download your app, and if you only got 500 users from that, I'd much rather hear that you've got 500 users. I don't
Mm.
care about the number of downloads. No vanity metrics. Two, focus is really important. So all that means is, especially with an early stage startup, just focus on doing one thing and serving that. Too many startups, they pitch and they overcompensate for a lack of traction sometimes. What they feel is a lack of traction. And they'll say, oh, we do this. And we also have this other feature. And we also do this other thing. And it's kind of like, every time I say all the time, the word "and" is the killer. It just kills your pitch. It's like, we do this and this and this and this. And it's like,
Mm.
just
Mm.
focus. Tell me how you solve this problem and you do one thing really, really well. And potentially you can tell me later about how there's one or two other elements to it. But I think,
Mm.
no vanity metrics, and just focus.
Yeah.
And so no vanity metrics are a red flag, and the lack of focus is a red flag as well.
Great advice, Andy. I'm conscious of time, and I really want to get into talking about 10x10 and diversity and
Oh,
inclusion. It's something. It's, I think, advancing social mobility and D&I in the startup world. These are topics that I know we're both passionate about. Given everything that's going on in the world, particularly the Black Lives Matter movement, I know you created the Black Report to examine the landscape for Black founders in the 2020s, and it does paint a shocking, but unfortunately a not that surprising picture. So
yeah,
anyone that hasn't heard of it, do you mind telling us a bit about the Black Report, and some of the issues at hand, and some of your findings from it?
sure. So the Black Report is a report that I created last year, and so we launched it for the first Black Report last year, and it's a report on early stage Black founders in the UK, the first. Um, and it doesn't necessarily matter that that it was the first, but because I want to say that we didn't do it because there was no data on Black founders. That's not why it started, right? Because yes, there's no data. Yes, there was no data on Black people generally in the UK,
Mm.
but I literally did it. Again, I've been a founder my whole life, and I talk to founders 24/7, and I realize that every founder feels alone in their journey. You don't understand this, right? Every
Yeah.
founder feels alone in their journey. Founders, listen, everyone feels alone. But there's so many other people going through the same experiences as us. So I just said I wanted to create a report that that told a story as to who Black founders are, what their businesses are, how they were raised, who their teams are, investors are, and their why behind it. And I think so. The Black Report, the purpose was the purpose was just insights, realistic insights as to who Black founders are and perspectives for current and future Black founders. And that was why. And yes, on top of that, there was always the added value of the wider ecosystem, it serving them, and a few people external to it, a few like large institutions got involved, and they asked me to speak at their all hands meetings for their staff and their exec team meetings and stuff. And so they were super interested in Black entrepreneurship, especially given the race crisis that happened last year. But I think we did it for founders, and I think that's why you should always stay true. That's the thing, right? Just always stay mission driven and true, and if you do that, the best work will get produced. And I'm very grateful for all the nice things that have been said about the Black Report. And when I look at it, I think, oh, this can be so much better, and it will be this year. But I appreciate that. It's a great piece of work, and I'm so proud of the team behind it as well.
Yeah, amazing. Well, huge hats off to you. I mean, it's such an important document. Were there any particular things that you would highlight from it that you think our listeners should hear about and be aware of?
So, firstly, I think there's a few highlights for me personally. I think one is that Black founders build diverse teams. This is something I've always known, but when we got to put the data together, we got to see it. So, 40% of all founders are female. When it comes to black startups, which is incredible. When it comes to all male versus all female teams, 42% of all teams are female versus 40% are male, and the rest being a mixed gender. And it's even the same thing with staff, right? We've got 46% of staff are female. I think those numbers are just unheard of in the industry. And it shows that Black founders build diverse teams, and that just happens to be and that's something that I assumed, but the data now tells us that that's the truth. Something else, I think Black founders have diverse investors. And I think this more speaks to the diverse investors piece, actually. That like the more diverse the investor base is and the world of investors is, the more opportunity diverse entrepreneurs get.
Totally.
Because if I look at the data, people of color, the investors were 36%, Black investors 32%, and female investors 25%. Again, these numbers are unheard of, and I imagine it will increase year on year as more diverse people get access to capital and exposure to this world and access to deals as well. And Black founders and diverse founders find these investors as well. And the whole world opens up as it's doing every single month. We're doing the work to make sure of that. Those are some highlights.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you've alluded to it, and I think things are changing, thankfully, and you're playing right at the forefront of shifting the dial when it comes to this. But there are still many obstacles, particularly for Black and ethnic minority founders.
Yeah.
What one piece of advice would you give them? They're listening to this now. They're inspired by some of the things you're saying. What advice do you have for them?
You aren't alone, right? And what that means is that there are so many diverse founders now who have built teams, solved massive problems, and raised money and who are succeeding. You aren't alone. Go and find those, and everyone's open. Everyone's open to helping everyone, all of us. So go and get connected to them, and just and whatever you need, just ask. You'd be very surprised, right? I think like with diverse individuals, we're also open to supporting each other because we know how hard it is for us, and we know like for someone like myself, I didn't have any help like coming up, right? Because these communities didn't exist. It was when it was 2009, 2010. The startup ecosystem in London didn't really exist. So, but now that all these things do, communities exist. Just go out there, find people, and so I'd say two things: find people and ask for help because you'll get it. And then I think the second piece is just do the work. Yeah. You'd be so surprised. So many people get caught up in all these things, right? Like I really, really appreciate if it's Business Insider, if it's Forbes, if it's whoever. But it's just about doing the work. I don't look for any of these things. I don't look for anything. Again, maybe I'm just a basic boy from Barking who doesn't need too much. But I think I just focus on doing the work every second of every single day. And for years, I always tell people, like, we just focus on value. We just focus on the work. We focus on value. That's all that matters. Everything else will build around us. And forever, people around 10x10 and other places always like, what are you talking about? You have to go and do these other things, you have to seek it out. And then I think we've all seen now that things just come to be. If you just focus on doing the work and you focus on value, everything else will build around you. So that's what I'd say.
Totally. No, thanks, Andy. Great advice. And just on the other side of the equation, what can companies do to improve D&I and include, particularly the inclusivity piece with their teams?
So here's one thing I think everyone should do. Find a diverse individual. So find a diverse colleague, person in your life, or founder, and make the goal of that relationship their progress. Just one person, and commit to it for a year, and give yourself quarterly goals for that with that person. And the only goal of that relationship, this new format of the relationship, is their progress. And trust me, if everyone does that, or if enough people do it, the needle will move significantly. 100%. If we will just take one person and make sure that we just support them, and the goal of that relationship is progress, things will move significantly.
Love that. And it plays so much into what this podcast is all about, mentorship. Like, we can all do it.
Yep.
And I think we should all do it, but for those that need it particularly, like, go beyond your world and make sure you're helping others. That
and one person is simple and it's accessible. One person, and that's what you're all about, mentorship. It's one person, and it isn't too much commitment. You can literally meet for an hour a month, or an hour every quarter. Just support them, but make sure the goal of that relationship is their progress. That's your goal personally, and you will fail if they haven't progressed. So make sure that's your goal.
Love that. And it's a ripple effect. They can then mentor someone else, and then it just keeps going. Yeah, 100%. Totally. Love that, Andy. So, I mean, I could talk to you for hours. We're sadly getting towards the end. I just wanted to quickly talk about 10x10. Do you mind letting our listeners know a bit about what 10x10 is all about and the awesome work you're doing?
So 10x10's the UK's group of early stage Black founders and investors. So that comprises of Black founders at mostly pre-seed, seed, where they're getting their companies off the ground and growing. And we've got a group of all the Black VCs in the UK, some Black angel investors, and now I'm setting up a fund called the 10x10 fund to invest in early stage Black founders as well.
Awesome. Right, we will watch this space. We might have to do a second round next year to hear about the progress there. But definitely, we wish you all the very best with that.
Thank you so much.
We're at the wrap up questions now, Andy. And it would be, I mean, we've talked already about mentorship. Do you have a specific mentor? And if there was one person in the world that you could get to mentor you, who would that be?
Oh, that's super interesting. So I don't have a mentor. However, I grew up. So the other day, I was with my cousin, and I think someone said, "Why are you sitting in the back of the car or something?" And I was like, "Oh, because he's older than me." And I think they were like, I think people were like, but people looked at me like, "But you're a grown man. You're a grown man. You do important work." But I was just like, that's how I was raised. I was like, I don't understand. And I think like a lot of my discipline and the values I was raised on and principles just come from my older brothers and my cousins who definitely played a part in raising me. And so I think Dave and my mom, I was raised by my mom, and I think they have been my mentors my whole life in some way. And I just know that, like, even my older cousin, we can talk and we can go back and forth, but I'll never speak back to him. Right, ever. I'll just keep it respectful. And no matter what I think in my head, I'll be like, this guy's an idiot. But I'll never say it. I'll just keep it quiet. And I think
bet there are a lot of people nodding along in agreement.
In our cultures, a lot of people are like, yeah, you just can't say anything. So I think they've been my mentors. And if there was one person I'd have mentor me in the world, I just think I think she's done it already. That's my mom. I think she's just been she's like, why do I bust my ass every single day, 24/7? I grew up going to school, and one of my teachers was like primary school, year 6. One of my teachers was like, "Oh, your mom's here," and I was like, "Where?" And she was like, "There." I was like, "That's my nan," and she was like, "That's your nan," and she whispered like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, is your mom dead?" And I was like, "Mom dead?" And I was like, "No, she's at work." She's like, "I've never seen her before," and I was like, "Oh, bye," and I just left and ran off. But it was because, like, my mom was working like 3 jobs, like doing cleaning like 5 to 9, and then doing like a receptionist job 10 to 6, and then doing some care
Wow.
home job from like 7 to 10, and the same thing every single day. So I was going to my nan's. My brother and I were going to our nan's every day in the week, and then going home on the weekends. But where my work ethic comes from, even unconsciously, maybe comes from that. Like I grew up
Yeah.
with like someone busting their ass and working extremely hard to have their own business and stuff. So how dare I not work hard?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when it comes to mentorship, I think that mentorship happened indirectly, and
Love
happened
that.
in life, and that's probably where I could probably get a
Brilliant
lot from.
answer. Yeah, love that, Andy. Love that. And given all the success you have had, and I know you'll play this down, but I think you've done some amazing things already, and I'm sure there's lots more to come. How, when you look back on your career, like what do you want to be remembered for?
So I didn't each call. People always ask, "Oh, how can I help you?" Because they sometimes they find me helpful, thankfully. And I always say, you can help me by helping you, right? You can help me by winning. If you win, then we all win. So
Yeah,
it's never it's never gonna be about me. Like there's nothing I should be remembered for. I think what I want is just is progress, and I just exist to push our culture forward. And if the culture wins, then I've done a decent, and then hopefully I would have played a small part and done a decent job. So
love
yeah,
it.
so hopefully they'll see the culture, and they haven't got to remember me, but they'll remember the entrepreneurs and the differences made in their lives and the problems solved.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andy. What a good answer. And I think that's it, isn't it? The role you can play is kind of helping others, make a massive impact in the world and actually change some of the things that have been wrong about the world for a long time. And I
Yeah,
think progress is being made on that front, thankfully.
definitely.
But there's lots more to be done. And before we finish up, for any listeners thinking about building a business or making a maybe a massive career move, like what final piece of advice would you leave them with?
I think have no fear. Just have no fear, right? Doing is free, right? Working hard. I think working hard is free. So when people don't work hard, it makes you question things a bit. But my advice is just have no fear. Um, there's a quote. I'm not even a quote guy, but there's one quote I've got on my phone saved, and it's I think it was a little girl talking to her mum, and she said, um, "Mother, what if I fall?" And her mother said, "Oh, but oh, darling, what if you fly?" And I think that's it,
Nice,
right?
nice.
And so I always think that, what if you fly?
Brilliant. That is the perfect place to end this. Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure. Love talking to you. And yeah, wish you all the very best for the year ahead. Yeah, thank you
Same
so
with
much
you.
for giving us
Thanks,
your time.
thanks so much for having me. This has been super fun.